So I have a question for you. Let me show you this. Do you see this thing? Put it on the tube here. See the top of it? And here's the bottom. It's kind of long here. You can actually adjust it. Do you know what this is? It's a tool. It's called a basket wrench. And you use a basket wrench when you're putting in a faucet or removing faucets like a kitchen or in a bathroom. And what happens is if you have to get up behind the sink underneath, right below the countertop, you can't get any type of wrench in there. It's impossible. But when you have the basket wrench, this wrench here, you can actually place it underneath and you can turn it and remove the faucet, whether it's the supply lines and so forth. So you're like, why is he sharing this about a basket wrench? Well, why on earth would I need this? Well, I feel blessed that I grew up. My dad was a plumber, so I learned a lot of things. And one of the things I learned was when you have the proper tool, it makes some jobs way easier, or it takes some jobs that are impossible and makes them possible. And so I always knew about a basket wrench, and because of that, I was always comfortable putting in new faucets or taking faucets out to repair them and do things like that. But when you have the right tools, it makes doing a job even easier and faster. And so I'm going to share with you a tool called a mind map. And it's something, do you need it? No, you could probably get by without it, but it is a tool as an insurance salesperson that you could use that might help you get more sales more quickly and more effectively. So we call this really, it's a modified mind map. But when you do discovery in the insurance, conversation, you end up asking a lot of questions. And oftentimes what happens is PL Rater guides your questions. You got a form to fill out, you got to ask questions. And when we do it that way, what happens is we turn it from a conversation into an interrogation. Who likes that, right? People don't feel good when they're interrogated, and they'll answer the questions, but sometimes it's almost under duress. With a mind map, what it allows you to do is have more of a conversation. And if you're asking hard-working questions, high-impact questions, you end up getting a lot of information, and people start sharing freely. They let their guard down. And the more they do that, what it happens is it turns from a selling conversation to a buying conversation. Okay, so all that to preface how we ask questions and do discovery. It starts with number one, that transition from our agenda and credibility to that opening discovery question, the segue. So what's got you looking at your insurance today? Or why did you call us today about your insurance specifically? That's a key question to start off your discovery, because you're going to find out their core motivation. It wasn't like they woke up that morning and said, I feel like calling an insurance agent today. They had a need. They had enough of a need, whether it's they purchased a new house, maybe they got their most recent renewal and it was a lot more expensive. Something happened. Maybe they saw all this advertising on TV with Flow, etc., right? But it triggered them to call. And it's really great to start out with that because they have an answer to it. So you know where they're coming from and you know where to start from. Now, from there, this is where the most savvy insurance agents ask the right questions, not just ask all the questions, because you want this to be as much as possible a good human interaction. You know, we all have to go to the dentist, but some dentists make it a little bit more easy than others. So let's make sure this is actually a pleasurable experience, right? So what we found also is people, when they share information, they share it in all different categories, right? So they're throwing out information. Sometimes it's about their insurance and their current policy, their current agent. Sometimes they may share some information about their family. They may throw something in there about work. They might throw something that they're doing this weekend, their recreation, fun, etc. And When you have a mind map, it allows you to let the conversation take its course to a certain extent. And when people are talking, you let them talk. And as they're talking, you can use this mind map to capture all that information in these different categories. So this page here that you're looking at, and I'll send you a link to this, this document, is where I have questions in there that you can consider asking. And I've collected these from insurance agents over the years, and this is something that will get you started. You can change it or you can keep them the same, but this can help you ask the right questions in those areas. The second page here is a blank mind map. This is something that you could have on your desk, and when you begin a conversation with a client, you can begin filling out or putting the information in the mind map in the specific categories that they belong. So, and sometimes it falls into two, so just choose one and capture the information. The other thing about mind maps is just kind of bullet points, points that will trigger your brain to kind of think about what they shared about. So family, oh, they have 3 kids. Now you wrote that down. So now you might go back to that. You might say, hey, Bob, you mentioned you had 3 kids. How old are your children? And, what kind do you have, right? Boy, girl, and what are they into, that kind of thing. So if they're the type of customer that will talk, it allows you to have deeper conversations. So motivation, what has got you looking at your insurance today? I want to save money. No kidding, right? That's the motivation block. So as you collect this information, it also gives you a visual clue on where you have all the information you need, but also where you may be lacking. I'll tell you, number one is the motivation block. So if you take a look at the motivation block here, if you glance down and you're a few minutes into the conversation and you don't understand what would motivate them to do business with you, or what would motivate them to switch from the current agency that they're with to you, then that means you might want to ask some more questions. And on the previous page here, you can see if you ask just some of these questions, it might help you identify that, but more importantly, help the customer, right? Hey, so you said you want to save some money, and you can see here, well, what amount of savings would make you switch? How about asking that question before you go through the whole PL rate exercise? Try to pull that slot machine and hope it comes up with a good rate, right? All of a sudden you say, well, I saved you, $28. Well, it's not worth it. If I asked this question earlier in my conversation, when they're talking, I might be able to better understand what kind of savings, and if $28 isn't going to quite cut it, I might have found out some other information. For example, hey, well, how familiar are you with the process of switching? I don't know it. I don't know really how much, because a little later they might say, well, $28, it's just not worth the hassle. If I ask this question up front, I may be able to educate them on how easy it is to switch. You guys get the point? So this is a mind map, and I've got these questions here that you can toggle between. So have this page on your desk on one side and then a blank one here, and start completing the information. And again, this will help you do a more thorough discovery and capture more information and understand their situation. So when you get to the point and you're going to be offering some different options and maybe making suggestions on, moving forward with you, you can then use all this information. You've really earned the right to do it. If you look down at your mind map and it looks rather blank, you probably have not earned the right to make a recommendation. You don't have enough information. That's like a doctor prescribing medication without doing any diagnosis. Some of us might just take the drug, could be dangerous, right? So that's what the mind map's all about. Here's my challenge. 2 things. Number one, print this out. Make adjustments to the questions if you care to. If not, just have that out. Have a blank one out and collect information on one call, okay? One call. Just collect the information, and you can do it as the call progresses, as you're talking to them, fill it out. And sometimes this slows you down to listen a little bit more. And sometimes there's some silence that allows them to think as you're jotting notes down. More information comes out. And then once you get off the phone, you may not have captured everything. Just before you move on to your next task, take 60 seconds, 120 seconds, right? And just recollect the conversation and jot down any additional information. And then when you look at that, just do a quick self-evaluation. Think about it like, if I still had them on the phone, what might be some other questions I could ask? Or what are some questions, gosh, I would have asked this. This will help us on the next one. But if you can do this on just one call, this is going to help you understand, okay, am I asking the right questions? What questions should I be more thoughtful, maybe ask that I haven't been consistent in asking, etc. All right. Now, here's a second exercise that I might ask you to do. You might have quoted somebody and you're going to be calling back with a recommendation or following up. With that person, write down as much information as you can recall on your mind map and look at what gaps you might have. And when you make that follow-up call, you might be leaving a voicemail because they didn't pick up the phone. You might say, hey, I was thinking about you, Bob. I was going through the different options. I had a few more questions that I wanted to ask that can help you get the right protection at the most competitive price. Give me a call back, right? And then if you do get them on the phone, you can say, hey, Bob, a couple more questions just to clarify so I'm making sure I can make the best possible recommendation and squeeze the most out of this policy for you. You mentioned this and I wanted to clarify, can I ask you this? Right? So 2 exercises there, but I'd love to hear your feedback. What do you think? Do you think this is something that makes sense? Doesn't? Okay, let me know. What questions do you have? Right? We'll talk about it, but I can tell you a lot of agents that I've worked with, they now embrace this. They don't necessarily fill it out in every single call, but what it has helped them to do is make sure they have a tool that helps them get the job done quicker, faster, and more efficiently. Kind of like your basket wrench if you're putting in some faucets. Hey, go to Home Depot. It's worth having one in the garage. You never know when you're going to need it. And man, it's great to have a tool for the job that you need to get it done right. So what do you say? You going to use that mind map? All right, we'll talk to you guys on our next call. And please fill out that form and the questions so we can really maximize the time we have together. You guys take care.